Kunja Bihari Jaya Ram. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopada Shyama Kundu Radha Kudi Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Jamuna Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gopramanandi. All glories to the Sam of the Bodhis, all glories to the Sam of the Bodhis, all glories to the Sam of the Bodhis, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Guranga, all glories to Sri Guru. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Vasa Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachadane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 29, Verse 33. Kurvanti hi tvairatam kusala sva atman nitya priye pati sutadi vir artidaikim Prana prasida parameshvara masmachindya asamdratam tvai chirat aravinda netra. Kurvanti, they show, he, indeed, tvai, for you, ratim, attraction, kusala, expert persons, sve, for their own, atman, self, nitya, eternally, priye, who is dear, pati, with our husbands, sutta, children, adibi, and other relations, artidai, who only give trouble, kim, what, tat, therefore, na, to us, prasida, be merciful, parameshvara, O Supreme Controller, masma chinja, please do not cut down, asam, our hopes, dhritam, sustained, tvai, for you, chirat, for a long time, aravinda netra, O lotus-eyed one. Translation, expert transcendentalists always direct their affection towards you because they recognize you as their true self and eternal beloved. What use do we have for these husbands, children, and relatives of ours who simply give us trouble? Therefore, O Supreme Controller, grant us your mercy. O lotus-eyed one, please do not cut down our long-cherished hope to have your association. Text 34. Until today, our minds were absorbed in household affairs, but you easily stole both our minds and our hands away from our household work. Now our feet won't move one step from your lotus feet. How can we go back to Vraja? What will we do there? Purport, Sri Krishna has blown his flute, and the intoxicating music that had come out of its holes had stolen the minds of the young Gopi girls. Now they had come to see Krishna to demand back their stolen property, but they could regain their minds only if Sri Krishna accepted them and engaged with them in conjugal affairs. Sri Krishna might have replied, but my dear Gopis, just go home for now. Let me consider the situation for a day or two, and then I will give you back your minds. In reply to this possible argument, the Gopis state, our feet refuse to move even one step. Please give us back our minds and accept us, and then we will go. Text 35. Dear Krishna, please pour the nectar of your lips upon the fire within our hearts, a fire you ignited with your smiling glances and the sweet song of your flute. If you do not, we will consign our bodies to the fire of separation from you, O friend, and thus, like yogis, attain to the abode of your lotus feet by meditation. O lotus-eyed one, the goddess of fortune considers it a festive occasion whenever she touches the soles of your lotus feet. You are very dear to the residents of the forest, and therefore we will also touch those feet. And from that time on, we will be able to even to stand in the presence of any other man, for we will have been fully satisfied by you. So, here we have a series of verses. This is the reply the Gopi gives to Krishna after he has stated how he wants to. They should go home, and he gives various reasons, which also have double meanings. Gopis, Krishna, of course, is very skillful at speaking, such that his words can have double meanings and hidden intentions. And similarly, the Gopis are also very skillful at speaking, and their words also can have many different types of meanings and intentions behind their words. So in this whole discussion, we'll find there's always an analysis of the meaning of Krishna and the gopis when they speak, because they often do have hidden meanings as well. And of course, the gopis are also meant here to reply to whatever Krishna spoke previously, and giving reasons why the gopis should return to their homes. So the gopis, of course, with intelligence, defend themselves and give good reasons why they should not return to their houses. They, of course, are on the highest level. So, though Krishna has spoken in terms of dharma and duties to family members and husbands and children, and setting an example for other people in society, we also know that ultimately the Bhagavatam proclaims that bhakti is independent of any other process, including dharma, and that one who takes to the process of bhakti is superior to the other processes, and therefore does not necessarily have to follow those principles. So that is the principle that the gopis understand here. Though normally, of course, we see that even the devotees don't contradict dharma. Here we find a case where they use this principle of bhakti being independent and superior to everything to justify their activity of going from the house and going to Krishna. And of course, we see that this whole incident with the gopis is also an arrangement of the Supreme Lord to show the great exalted nature of the gopis and how they've surpassed the rules of dharma, not by conscious endeavor, but simply because of attraction to Krishna. So when Krishna plays his flute, one from the point of view can criticize that because they give up their houses and neglect dharma, etc. But the gopis' argument is that actually above dharma is attraction for the Supreme Lord. So therefore, if one gives up everything for the Supreme Lord, one should not criticize that. One should praise that, because the person has understood the highest thing. So as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, in the beginning, he says, okay, don't disturb the minds of the people who are attached to karma yoga. Don't tell them to give up anything. Engage them in their activities. But if they're capable of giving up those activities, then you encourage them to give up those activities. That is on the level of jnana even. So if one is qualified for a higher process, then he has a right to give up the lower process and should not be criticized for that. So if the gopis are completely attracted to Krishna and are not attracted to their household affairs, they should not be criticized at all. Rather, they should be praised. And that, of course, is the whole essence of the Bhagavatam. The gopis are in the highest level because, in spite of the fact that they were bound by convention and duty and good conduct to stay with their families, they couldn't do that because of their great attraction to Krishna. So, in this particular verse, they talk about other persons also, those who are kusala, which means very skillful or expert persons. They also are attracted to Krishna because they understand that he is the highest person. And they use the word here that he is nitya priya. He is the dearmost of everyone. And therefore, in the same way, the gopis say, so we also are attracted to you just as the highest type of spiritual person is attracted to you. So why we should be criticized if we give up all of these household affairs. That the transcendentalists give up household affairs, so why we cannot also do so? Now, normally, of course, that is not done, we see. Generally, the women stay in the house, etc. But on the highest level, then it is possible. And so they're justifying that here by saying, we also are on this level where we've given up everything. Therefore, no one should criticize. So from the point of view of regular Dharma and giving up regular Dharma and getting the criticism of others, no one should do that if they actually understand the essence of Dharma, that Dharma actually means bhakti. So others should not criticize. And, of course, Krishna himself is attracted to the devotees. He's not attracted to dharma, karma, yoga, austerities, etc. But he is attracted to bhakti. And he's especially attracted to prema, that type of bhakti. So if a devotee displays such attraction for the Lord, how can the Lord reject that person? The Lord should be, just as the devotee is so attracted to the Lord should be attracted to the devotee in a similar way. So therefore, how can Krishna reject the gopis and tell them to go home for various reasons like dharma, etc., or fear of animals in the forest, etc.? So they don't consider these reasons to be valid, not good reasons for going home at all. Well, the definition of prema is that if one has developed prema, one will overcome all obstacles in order to fulfill that desire to meet the beloved. So therefore, the gopis display that by, of course, overcoming the obstacle of family members and husbands and society, etc. And the other is the obstacle of Krishna, because he is discouraging them, telling them to go home, so that they also reject. They will not hear those arguments at all. So, of course, here they overcome these obstacles of Krishna's arguments by counter-arguments, in which they utilize their skill in knowledge of scripture and knowledge of bhakti, etc. And by doing so, they actually attract Krishna. Because if one shows cleverness in response to Krishna's clever words, then the Lord also becomes very, very attracted. So, therefore, they have a very good strategy here. So, they compare themselves to these other very expert persons at spiritual life who have given everything up. So, we are in that category. And in the scriptures, of course, there's great praise for the sannyasi or the avaduta or the nirapeksha devotee, etc. So, they identify themselves on that level, so that why you should criticize us and when we give up these things also. So, of course, there's a little bit of a difference. And the difference is that transcendentalists are on one level, that may give up everything for the Lord, but the gopis are even greater, because they have to give up more because of their position as women. So they have to disregard the normal position of women in society. Men can take sannyas, etc. The women cannot. So the men don't get criticized when they give up their families. It's part of the social system. But if the women give up everybody in their family, then yes, they will get criticized. So they're in actually a more difficult situation, because generally not approved. Whereas within the society of Dharma itself, there's provision for men giving up their families. But for women to do so, no. They are condemned for doing so. But if they can do that, like the men do that, then on the one hand they're condemned by Dharma itself, but on the other hand they have surpassed Dharma, because they've transcended those rules as well that condemn the women. And of course it is true. And therefore the gopis are celebrated as the highest devotees, higher than any other devotees, because they have done this. And of course it is not a conscious attempt to contradict Dharma in any way. It is simply that they forget everything because of attraction to the Krishna. And therefore, in the next verses, they talk about how Krishna has stolen their hearts. And therefore, we are incapable of doing anything. So that means that their attraction for Krishna has reached the highest level. Why is it that they are so attracted to Krishna? And of course, they blame Krishna because it's the nature of Krishna. He's all attractive. So what can we do? We develop this great attraction for you, but there's nothing wrong with that because you are the most attractive person, attractive with form, qualities, and activities. And particularly, Krishna has intentionally attracted the gopis. So they mention the flute. So when Krishna played his flute on the Ras Purnima in the autumn season, that was particularly meant for the gopis. And that flute sound is such that it's very special. It is non-different from Madhurya Rasa itself. So, and the most attractive Madhurya Rasa with Krishna. So how can the gopis be blamed if they develop this strong love for Krishna by hearing that flute sound? Because it is a direct invitation to the gopis at that point. So how is it possible that we can be blamed for hearing that sound and running into the forest? It cannot be. So it is the nature of the flute itself to attract everyone, but it was also the intention of Krishna to attract the gopis at that time. So if that's the desire of Krishna, what can the gopis do? They will respond with the greatest love. So that is one thing that is attractive. The other, of course, is his direct actions or gestures, such as his glance. So we see in the Bhagavatam and other literatures as well, they speak of his glance. Of course, his glance can be used within any rasa, but particularly described in relation to Madhurya Rasa. Sometimes it's a side glance out of the side of Krishna's eye, or this may be a loving, affectionate glance of Krishna. So that is a stimulus for Madhurya Rasa, the way that Krishna looks at the gopis. And therefore that also is something which attracts them, and they cannot help but feel great love when they see his glance at them. And of course, glance means it's directed at particular persons. So there's a personal element there, Krishna glancing at a certain person. Of course, Krishna is such that though there are many gopis, when he glances, he can glance at all of them. And they all take it as a personal glance at themselves. Just as in the Ras Leela, Krishna danced with each of the gopis personally, even though he was also with Radha and whatever. Or when Krishna's with the cowherd boys, then he's with each of the cowherd boys eating lunch, even though he's also one person. He's expanded himself everywhere. So when he glances, it's a personal glance with each gopi. So how they cannot be attracted to Krishna because of that? So in this way, the various gestures of Krishna, as well as his flute sound, attract them. And of course, his beauty in general is attractive. Now, he's always attractive, but when he enters into the Kaishore age, that is particularly attractive for the persons in Madhurya Rasa. So at this point of the autumn season, Krishna had entered into his Kaishore period. So there, at that point, when he and the gopis had entered in that period, then he blew his flute, etc. So at this age, Krishna developed this special type of beauty which is especially attractive to the gopis. And they could not resist that. It's considered the most attractive age of Krishna. So the gopis cannot be blamed for being attracted to that form. We see, of course, that even when the wives of the Devatas see Krishna, then they also develop ecstatic symptoms. Or when Lakshmi sees Krishna, and then she also develops attraction for him. So how can the gopis be blamed? Now Krishna, of course, is in the form of a cowherd boy. And the gopis are also cowherd girls. So therefore, it is natural they should have attraction for that particular form, stronger than anyone else, stronger than the wives of the Devatas, and stronger than Lakshmi. So it's natural that when Krishna attained that age of Kayashora, that the gopis would develop that very strong attraction for Krishna. So how is it possible for them to not be attracted, since Krishna is most attractive? So instead of accepting blame on themselves for doing all sorts of activities in disregard of Dharma, the gopis blame Krishna. It's because of your nature that we're in this position. We cannot help it. You've stolen our hearts. You've stolen our minds. They put us in such a position that we cannot even move. So you tell us to go home, but our feet will not move. We're not in control of our senses anymore and our bodies. So it is useless to tell us to move from this spot. Our desire, as explained in this verse, also the asam, dhritam, our very strong hope and our aspiration is that we will meet you and give pleasure to you. So how can we now that we've almost attained this fulfillment of our desires, how can we leave this place? So that, of course, is one reason. The other, of course, is that due to the strong sthayi bhav of Madhurya, they do develop different sattvika bhavas. And one of those sattvika bhavas is that they become stunned and their bodies are incapable of moving. So that's another reason why they cannot move from that place, not simply because they've attained their desire, but also because due to sattvika bhavas they become stunned, and therefore their feet are incapable of moving at all. So therefore it is very, very difficult for them to fulfill Krishna's order that they return to their house, whatever like that. Of course, we know that when Krishna tells them to leave that place and go back, it is in one sense a test. Not a normal test, but a test to display their great love for him. And this conversation here, their response, is also part of that revelation of their great love, that they will speak in this way because of their attraction to Krishna. If they were very respectful and very humble, etc., and their desire was not so strong, when Krishna spoke like this, go back, then they would simply go back to their houses. But because of the strength of their love, instead, they very boldly spoke in this manner to Krishna, and they argued with him. And normally, of course, we don't see devotees arguing with the Lord and trying to defeat him. But here we see the gopis are actually countering Krishna's statements and arguing with him, using their cleverness and explaining their situation. And it is all because of their the strength of their love and their inability to leave him at this point. So in other words, it displays this reply of the gopis, manifests or shows how strong their love for Krishna is. They're willing to reply to him very boldly in order to fulfill their desires.
When Krishna plays the flute carried the information that he wanted the gopis to come and meet him. But after that he says, why you come? Is he testing them gopis, or what is he? Like,
well, of course, the nature, that's of course Krishna's intention. It says at the very beginning of chapter 29 that when Krishna saw that the full moon was there in the autumn season with the gently blowing breeze and the shining moon and the fragrance of the flowers at night, then he desired to call the gopis for the Ras Leela. So then he played his flute. So obviously that was the message he was giving them, and they of course would never refuse that. And so when they got there and he spoke in this way and told them to go back, they were completely shocked. First he says come, and then he says go back. He says, oh, why did you come here? I played my flute, but I didn't. So in one sense he contradicted himself, and they were very shocked by that and very disappointed as well, because it was a very great contradiction. But of course he can do that. He says, well, I didn't say anything, I was just playing my flute. So you can speak like that because of the nature of the flute is such that you could interpret it any way you want. So he could speak like that. But of course we know that he actually had intended to call them for the Ras Leela, so this was more or less a test to display their firmness in their desires, this asa here.
Normally all the gopis, we can say that they are all in prema level, they are not ordinary devotee. Okay, and we see for the prema level devotees, like Krishna became the obstacle. He became the obstacle to achieve Krishna also. So how to understand this? Because see, already they overcome everything. Correct? They overcome everything. Now they came to Krishna. Now Krishna said, okay, you go back. I don't want you.
Well, in most rasas, Krishna is not the obstacle. In other words, dasya rasa, etc., etc. Generally, he encourages those devotees. Madhurya rasa is a little different. So it's described in, I think, the Ujjwal Nilamani that the course of Madhurya rasa is crooked like a snake. So there's obstacles created not only by the situation, but by the participants themselves. Sometimes the gopis, and sometimes Krishna. Sometimes Krishna refuses the gopis, or sometimes the gopis refuse Krishna, and then Krishna becomes despondent or whatever like that. So we see that in various places. Sometimes the gopis become angry with Krishna, so they don't speak to him, and then Krishna becomes despondent and feels separation. And sometimes Krishna becomes angry with them and hides or does whatever like that. So in this way, either the gopis or Krishna become the obstacle for the other because of their particular mood at that time. But that is part of Madhurya rasa itself, to sometimes refuse the lover, etc. That's part of the, so that becomes an obstacle also.
Another question, like in the sea, that regarding the Sumitra's question, that flute. We know that in the spiritual world, everything has a life and everything is spiritual. And while Krishna was playing flute, he was calling them, all the gopis, through the flute, and flute became the instrument to call all the gopis in a forest. So can we say that it's not a Krishna, is only flute call all the gopis, not a Krishna? It's the flute call all the gopis, not a Krishna. Krishna also played the flute, but flute is a person.
Well, the flute is the messenger.
Yeah, he's a messenger.
Krishna has messengers he sends, so the flute is also a messenger. So through the flute he sends his message, that sound. So of course in material world the music cannot contain a specific message, like we can with a letter or with a statement, but it can do so for Krishna. And his flute sound, he can convey messages through that. So very, of course, in that spiritual world, so his intention can be conveyed through the notes of music itself. He can convey a message to the gopis. And they can understand that also. They can pick up the message on the other end. And so if he says, come to this particular place at this particular time, then they can all say, okay, we'll go to that particular place at that particular time. And nobody else can understand the message. But similarly, he can use the flute for other things. So he can call the cows with his flute, tell them, okay, go over there and, go to the river now and drink the water, and they'll go there and drink the water. Or it's time to get out of the water, come back, and with his playing his flute, they can come back also like that. So he can do that for the cows or for the cowherd boys or whatever. According to his will, he can use that flute. So a very, very powerful instrument. Huh?
Directly call them also, using voice. Instead of using the flute, Krishna could have directly called them, you please come, I'm in the forest.
Well, he can do that, of course, also, but the flute is one of his servants, and it's also one of his, part of his paraphernalia that he uses in his pastimes, and particularly in Madhurya Rasa. So, therefore, he often employs different things for his stimulating the love of the gopis. So this is one thing he uses.
But to become a flute of Krishna, is it a position or any jiva can attend it? It's eternal. It's
eternally his associate.
Because we know that Krishna has many flutes.
Yeah, of course we could say one is an expansion of the other. It just takes different forms.
So the flute position is higher than the gopis then?
Well, it's a different position because it acts as his servant to call the gopis and to participate in Madhurya Rasa. So the gopis have a human form and they can participate in rasa fully, whereas the flute generally can't, just like the cows cannot or the birds cannot. So the human forms can participate and speak in normal fashion and do activities, and that way the rasa can fully develop, whereas the flute doesn't do that.
So can you say that this flute is in a Sankara?
It's not particularly stated what rasa it's in.
What about what is Srimati Radharani? Balaram is the immediate expansion of Krishna and Srimati Radharani is the internal energy of Krishna. And if you compare both of them, who is the highest, actually Balaram or Srimati Radharani? Someone asked this question.
Well, Krishna is considered more powerful, so that's why we call him Swayam Bhagavan.
Yeah.
And that even Balaram is under his control in one sense, so he can cast his yoga maya and Balaram can get bewildered as well. So in that sense, he's more powerful.
Comparison between Radharani and Balaram means who is the highest, Radharani or
Well, it's different.
Balaram?
It's different because Balaram is Bhagavan and Radharani is Shakti, so we can't compare them. Of course, we can say that Shakti is higher than Krishna also in one sense because Krishna is controlled by his Shakti. Yeah. So in that sense we say, but still, according to ontology, Bhagavan is supreme, and the Shakti is never independent. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. But still, his position is he's the highest, he's independent, he's the cause of everything. One of the? Yeah. Well, they do. They actually, in the puja, there at the end of the puja, there's a thing that you worship the flute, you worship the other thing, different paraphernalia of Krishna. So they do sometimes.
In our Indian culture that we don't allow women to take renounced order of life or something like that. So
Well, as I said, this is exceptional. And we see Krishna accepted it. So therefore, it's on a much higher level. And in the material world, generally people depend on Dharma. But the case of the gopis is they're beyond Dharma.
And also, Maharaj, so generally devotees, Nitya Siddhas, they are always in prema, and generally once the prema is awakened to one form of the Lord, it's generally not changed to some other form of the Lord. Like for example, Hanuman, he is always worshipping Sri Ram. So that being the case, Lakshmi Devi being the consort of the Lord Vishnu, still she got attracted to Krishna. How do we understand that, Maharaj?
Well, it's simply the nature of Krishna is such that everybody becomes attracted to him, that's all. She never changed her position, obviously, but she just was attracted. We could say even Hanuman becomes attracted to Krishna or whatever like that. But they never changed their position ultimately. He'll think of Rama. We'll think of Rama.